But we want to get into this story here about Vladimir Putin's visit to the Middle East because, look, guys, things are getting real, okay? Things are getting real. I made a joke about the United States relationship with Saudi Arabia a couple of weeks ago, and I said Saudi Arabia is that friend that, you know, it's like they know us, but they also have another friend, and they stopped returning our calls. So I was just joking around. But apparently, that is really the case, okay? Vladimir Putin made what they're calling a rare visit to the Middle East because he hasn't made many trips since this war with Ukraine. And the fact that this trip was made to the Middle East and he met with other Arab leaders, it's starting to spark some buzz in mainstream media. I want to get started with this clip here from CNN first, and then we're going to go to international sources as well. Vladimir Putin in the Middle East, what was the conversation about? And should the United States be concerned that Saudi Arabia has that new friend?
Well, Russian President Vladimir Putin is here in Abu Dhabi, where he is holding talks with UAE President Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan. It's been fairly rare for Mr. Putin to travel outside of Russia since his invasion of Ukraine almost 2 years ago. But he received a warm welcome here a short time ago with the UAE military jet flyover past his limousine route and a full military salute. For more on this, let's bring in CNN's Frederick Pleitgen in Berlin. Look, it is not unusual this week or this past week to see foreign dignitaries and leaders of countries coming into the UAE. Of course, it is hosting the COP28 meeting in Dubai at present. So what more, though, do we know about Mr. Putin's visit to the UAE and the wider region? And what is he trying to achieve?
Well, I think it's several things, Becky, and I think that this visit, as we've just seen there on that video that you were just playing, is extremely important to the UAE and, of course, later to Saudi Arabia, but very important to Vladimir Putin as well. And I think some of the images that we've seen, especially with that flyover, with that salute, but also with the escort that Vladimir Putin got, I think it is showing how important this visit is also to the UAE and the message that the UAE and Saudi Arabia are trying to send to the United States and also to the rest of the world.
Let's pause here. So this is Mohammed. He is the leader of the UAE. And notice what the commentator said here, how this is a message that they're trying to send to the rest of the world. And what is that message, folks? That message is that Russia is not alone. Russia is not isolated. Russia has friends. And this is not something the U.S. government wants. They don't want Russia to have friends. They want Russia to be isolated. They don't want other countries collaborating with Russia. But you see, this is not necessarily the case. Now, listen, it was one thing before because I said that Putin has a friend next door called China. He can knock on their door. He's also a part of BRICS. But now he's also meeting with leaders in the Middle East. So we got to pay attention to what's happening, folks.
Saying that, look, they are America's allies. They're very important allies for the United States in the Middle East, but they also want to continue working and having pragmatic relations with the Russian Federation and with Vladimir Putin. I did see some of the opening remarks in that meeting with the UAE president, where the UAE president himself said that the UAE is Russia's most important trading partner in the Middle East. Vladimir Putin, as you've noted, himself then saying that the relations between the UAE and Russia are at an all-time high. Now, of course, all this comes as the United States and its European allies have been trying to isolate Russia on an international stage. And that's certainly something where the message that I think we're seeing from Vladimir Putin today, which is one that the Russians have been sending for quite some time now, is that Russia will not be isolated internationally. Russia is too big to be isolated internationally. And Russia is certainly too important in player, especially in the hydrocarbon sector, to be isolated in the Middle East. So definitely.
So notice also he said that Russia has trade agreements also with the UAE.
A very important meeting. And I think some of the things that they are going to be talking about, because of course there is also a very important official agenda as well, they are also quite telling. One of the things, of course, the Israel-Hamas war, where Vladimir Putin has sort of been trying to style himself as, on the one hand, being on the side of the Palestinians, of course.
Pause. Check this out, folks. This isn't just about the war in Ukraine. this is also about what's happening to the Palestinian people in Gaza. Now, this can be a sticky situation, right? Because there are some, if you go back and look through the history, there were some Jewish people that were Russian, right? That ended up settling in what was Palestine, what later became as Israel when they came in and they colonized that area. So one would assume that Vladimir Putin, being Russian, he would side with the state of Israel. But that has not been the rhetoric that I've seen coming from Russia. The rhetoric that's been coming from seems to be having more sympathy for the Palestinians in Gaza. So Vladimir Putin meeting with these leaders in the Middle East, that tells me that there is something at play here where they may be trying to figure out what can we do about the situation in Gaza. Think about this, guys. He's not a part of the Middle East. Let's go on.
Repeatedly calling for a Palestinian state, but still also wanting to be a mediator. Of course, he is a very important player in Israel also, with such a large chunk of the Israeli population having Russian roots. So certainly Vladimir Putin trying to style himself that way, trying to inject himself into politics in the Middle East, and at the same time, of course, remaining an extremely important economic player as well, Becky.
Fascinating. Thanks.
Look at her expression. I'm sorry. I had to show this, guys. Look at her expression. Watch this one more time, because she was not happy by what he said there. Watch her.
There as well, Becky.
Fascinating. Thanks.
I'm sorry. It was funny. She was like, fascinating.
Thanks. Fred Plykin on the story for you. Well, while Vladimir Putin visits Abu Dhabi today, G7 leaders are meeting virtually this hour with the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Reports say that this meeting is a show of support for Ukraine in its war with Russia. Well, the conflict has been raging for nearly 2 years. Right now, Russian forces are pressing on with a large-scale attack on the eastern Ukrainian town of Advika. CNN following a group of Ukrainians there called the White Angels. As Anna Corin explains, this team brings much-needed supplies to people still living in the war zone.
At a warehouse stocked with humanitarian aid, 23-year-old police officer Dmytro Solovy picks up supplies. Food, water, hygiene products and a generator are on the list. He's part of the White Angels unit, and they're heading to his hometown of Avdiivka in the Donetsk region on the Eastern Front.
So we'll stop it there because of, how YouTube can be with that type of coverage. But yes, so we still have this war in Ukraine that is happening as well. There's another clip I want to show you here of Vladimir Putin with Saudi Arabia, where it says Russia and Saudi Arabia urge all OPEC plus powers to join oil cuts. I told you this is like a really big deal. And this is from One. Let's go ahead and bring this in here.
Russian President Vladimir Putin departed from Riyadh earlier in the day, and while his visit sparked considerable interest and speculation, questions about Russia's relationship with West Asia triggered concerns. And the big question, however, arises, is Putin's West Asia visit about mediating in Israel's war, or whether Russia, who's at war with Ukraine for over 20 months now, can find cash to fund ammunition and gear up for a long war. While Putin's agenda continues to remain a mystery, the Russian president's visit goes beyond economic consideration. At an investment conference, Putin says that Russia is ready to cooperate with China in any area, including military technology.
Let me pause there for a second. Did you guys hear what she just said? She said that Vladimir Putin has just announced that they are willing to cooperate with China in any area, including technology. You see, NATO and the US government, they have basically pushed Russia right into China's arms. I predicted this would happen if they kept poking the damn bear. They were like, poking it, poke, 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 poke it, poke, poke. So imagine what that could be like. Russia has powerful nukes. They have powerful weapons. And now if they are willing to collaborate with China, especially in areas of technology, they can have powerful technology. What am I trying to tell you, folks? I'm trying to tell you that the West is crumbling. The US empire, is falling. It's happening right in front of us. And I feel like our government is trying to do everything that they can to hold on to whatever little bit of power that they have. But while they were asleep, while they were focused on stealing from other countries and attacking other countries, countries like Russia and China were building. They were creating. And this is where we are now.
First, in regards to China, we are ready to cooperate with China in any spheres. We have no limitations, including military technologies.
No limitations. He said they have no limitations in reference to cooperating with China, including military technology. And I got to tell you something, folks. This is not to say that we do not have technology in this country. We do. But I just want to keep it real with you. When we're talking about tech, we have tech industries in the US, very prominent in Silicon Valley, also really big here in Boston, Massachusetts, believe it or not. But the type of tech that they develop in China, in my opinion, based on what I've seen, is more superior to the technology that we have in the United States. People need to get ready. People need to get prepared. You've been warned.
As we think about the future world order, about ensuring our security, we are letting go of the traditional buy and sell relations. We are thinking about the future and thinking about technology. So we will be working with the People's Republic of China. We have very good, trustful relations with Xi Jinping on the governmental level, on the level of business community. I have no doubt that nobody will be able to stop us or delay our development.
I have no doubt that no one will be able to stop us or delay our development.
In November, Putin told a senior Chinese military official that Moscow and Beijing should expand their cooperation on military satellites and other prospective defense technologies.
We can see all this. And together with our friends, in particular and above all, the People's Republic of China, we react to this in a calm and balanced way. We strengthen our defense capabilities, in particular through joint naval and air exercises.
So as the world awaits the outcomes of Putin's West Asia visit, the flurry of meetings indicate that this trip is not a routine visit, especially when we take into consideration his rare foreign excursion in the backdrop of West's constant barrage of attacks against him and an international arrest warrant to his name.
Yeah, there's that too. There's one more clip that I want to show as well, because I'm trying to show you guys, like, they are making moves. Again, here it says Putin visits Saudi and the UAE on West Asia tour. Putin all set to host Iran in Moscow. Listen to this, guys.
Well, in other global news, Russian President Vladimir Putin arrived in Saudi Arabia on Wednesday after visiting the United Arab Emirates.
Well, this is Putin's visit in the Gulf area. Moscow is seeking to reassert itself on the global stage and bolster its influence in West Asia. It is only the third trip Putin has taken outside the former Soviet Union since Russia invaded Ukraine, following visits to Iran and China.
Well, Putin was seen greeting Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman before the two briefly sat down for televised talks. He said, and I'm quoting him here, "It is very important for all of us to exchange information and assessments with you on what is happening in the region." Take a listen.
Мы ждали вас в Москве. Знаю, что обстоятельства.
I'll read this for you. "We had been expecting you in Moscow. I know that circumstances have caused adjustments." That's coming from Vladimir Putin.
Эти планы.
"To these plans, but as I said, nothing can prevent the development of our friendly relations." You guys hearing this? Friendly.
Но, как я уже сказал, ничего не может помешать развитию наших дружеских отношений.
Prince Mohammed said bilateral cooperation had helped remove many tensions in West Asia and contributed to enhancing security as well.
أيضا التنسيق والعمل السياسي بين البلدين ساعد بإزالة الكثير من الاحتقانات في الشرق.
Political coordination and cooperation between the two countries has helped in making
Также благодаря политической кооперации и взаимодействию нам удалось положительно повлиять на ряд моментов на Ближнем Востоке.
a positive impact on many issues in the Middle East, and this has enhanced security. Is the United States government losing its foothold in the Middle East? This is something that we should pay attention to, right? It's interesting because the Biden administration, I feel that they are distracted by so many other things that this visit just kind of flew right over their head.
وساهم في تعزيز الأمن.
In the region, our future coordination in the fields of politics and security will undoubtedly bolster security in the Middle East and in the world. What does that tell you, ladies and gentlemen? Think about this. This is Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is an ally of the United States. But I told you Saudi Arabia is like that, shifty friend. Like right now, they're just like, yeah, I'm not really liking you that much, US. I'm friends with Russia. I'm friends with China now. So you see what is happening. Saudi Arabia is set to join BRICS next year, January of 2024. Now, why is this problematic for the United States? The US government needs Saudi Arabia for what? Oil, right? But does Saudi Arabia really need us? That's the difference. So what happens next year? Do you think the US government is going to be okay with Saudi Arabia joining BRICS, with Saudi Arabia having a relationship with Vladimir Putin? I don't think they're going to be okay about that. But this is Russia and Saudi Arabia sending a huge signal to the United States, and they're letting the US government know, we don't need you, boo. We're moving forward without you.
Well, the Kremlin said ahead of the meeting that the two would discuss oil markets as well as ways to promote de-escalation in the war in Gaza. Well, since March, Putin has been wanted for...
Let's go back to this part here, sorry, about when she talks about Gaza.
Well, the Kremlin said ahead of the meeting that the two would discuss oil markets as well as ways to promote de-escalation in the war in Gaza.
Did you guys hear that? So they're not just discussing oil, but we'll get back to that in just a second, but also de-escalation of the war in Gaza. So you have the US government just voted against permanent ceasefire at that UN Security Council meeting that I talked about with Lee Camp earlier. They just voted against it. They were the only country to vote against it. The UK chose to abstain. Okay. But every other country that was there voted in support of the permanent ceasefire and to declare this a humanitarian crisis, right? The US voted against it. Now you have Vladimir Putin and the Saudi prince coming together to work towards some type of peace deal or de-escalation in Gaza. Then you also have all the other countries that voted for the ceasefire today that are also on that same side. What I'm trying to tell you is, as much as the US government and mainstream media want you to believe that Russia stands alone, right now, the United States stands alone. We're the ones that are becoming isolated.
Well, since March, Putin has been wanted for war crimes by the International Criminal Court over the invasion of Ukraine. Well, he skipped the BRICS summit in August in South Africa, which recognizes the ICC in a bid to avoid causing a political show, and missed the G20 summit in India in September as well. But neither the UAE nor Saudi Arabia have signed the ICC's founding treaty, meaning that they are not obliged to arrest him.
So notice how they can accuse Vladimir Putin for war crimes, right? The ICC, but they weren't willing to do that in reference to the state of Israel, right?
The Russian leader was earlier welcomed with a full cavalry escort and motorcade in the UAE, where he met President Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan. A national air show team drew a Russian flag with colored fumes in the sky. Full pomp and show. The Russian president said UAE was Russia's main trading partner in the Arab world. Bilateral trade hit a record $9 billion last year, according to the Kremlin, and Putin said a number of projects were underway in the oil and gas sector as well.
A number of projects underway in the oil and gas sector. Remember, again, the United States has this relationship with Saudi Arabia because of the oil. Now, Vladimir Putin is basically showing the U.S., guess what? You're not the only ones that can make some type of deal with Saudi Arabia when it comes to oil and gas. As a matter of fact, we might start our own thing. See how you do then. The U.S. domination and empire is coming to an end. All these other countries are showing us that they don't really need us. They can move forward without us.